I have been on a journey for the last few years, and I'll share that with you tonight. I'd like to sort of go through it not as quickly as possible, but what I'd love to then have, is sort of dialogue from the group. So ask me questions, but, happy to sort of, be challenged and say, what about this, and did you think of that? And so dive in and, let's sort of make this more collaboratively, funnily enough. So for the past 5 years, I've been quite obsessed by the number 1. And I'll tell you why that is. But what I've learned is that collaboration and participation is far more powerful. So when you bring people together, there's a lot more potential. 1 + 1 really can create incredible things, and that's just to prove the point. So these are my 3 gorgeous children, and I was reflecting on them and thinking, why do my kids get to go to school, get to go to the doctor, get to have ice creams, and there's millions of kids in the world that don't have those same really basic privileges? And I came from the brand and marketing world, and I've spent 20 years of my life selling products and services that fundamentally we probably don't need. So I had that classic, at the age of 40, sort of thought, what am I going to do for the next 20 years? I looked at the sector and I thought, we don't need more charities, but charities are always looking for ways to raise more money. So I put on my sort of brand and marketing hat, and I come from a world that talks about building global brands, and I thought, well, wow, could I build a global brand that has a social value? In that sort of midlife crisis point, I did consider doing a career change because I couldn't figure out how brand and marketing could actually work in the sort of add real value to the world, so to speak. But then this fabulous quote, look at your talents and see how you can give them in the most meaningful way. It's just one of those things you sort of read one day and you go, oh, okay, have I got some talents and can I use them in a more meaningful way? As I said, considered a career change, considered becoming a doctor, because I sort of naively think, oh, they really help people. I'd make a terrible doctor. Unfortunately, my husband pointed that out. And so, yeah, got to thinking, how can I use brand and marketing skills to really have a positive social impact? The other sort of perspective I came from was I've got that sense of when I'm 80 and looking back on my life, how do I want to reflect on it and what do I want to think I've achieved? So all of that was what led me to coming up with the idea of $1 a day. So imagining that if on just one day, every year, everyone gave just $1. So there's 23 million Australians, and could fundraising be that simple? Part of that journey was, I call it this sort of crescendo of my personal, professional, and then philosophical. I can't answer the big questions about why my kids are here and why we're sitting here and not in Syria or in Ethiopia or other parts of the world that don't have the same basic privileges that we have. I can't answer, those sort of big questions, but I also looked at the fundraising models, and a lot of them rely on selling merchandise. And from my personal experience, I sort of go, well, I don't need that, and I also don't know how much of my money is going to reach the end cause. So I wanted something really, really transparent. I also wanted something that was a real equaliser, because I've been on the privileged end of going to the big gala dinners and sitting there in my black tie frock, raising money for a charity, thinking, how much of the ticket price and the champagne, where's this all going to end up? So I wanted something so incredibly simple and transparent. So with $1 a day, it's just $1, just one day from everyone. It's an equaliser. So regardless if you're this big CEO or a kid with pocket money, can we just be reminded on this one day that we're all no different? And then an enabler. So based on my children, I thought I wanted to channel the funds to reducing the inequities in children's health and education. And the reason for that focus was that kids don't choose their circumstances. They're just born into them. Sperm meets egg, and bingo, we're either born in Australia or somewhere else. So that was the sort of journey to $1 a day. I knew I couldn't do it alone, so I just started knocking on doors, and that was, I guess that was the first part of this very, very, very collaborative journey. I knew I wanted it to be a global brand, so I approached Landdaughter, a global branding company, didn't know them from a bar of soap, so I literally Googled, looked up the MD, rang them, said, got this idea, can you help me? They were amazing. They said, love the idea, we'd love to help. So they developed a brand strategy for me. And this was one of the things that came out of it. And it's actually sort of been pivotal to the whole journey. And that's where the logo actually came from. So, you know, it's a tile on its own. It's got no real value and no real beauty. But as a mosaic, when lots of little things come together, there's real potential and real magic. So that whole sort of sense of collaboration just continued. My accountant told me I needed a law firm. Again, I wanted this vision I had was for it to be global, so I knocked on Baker McKenzie's door, and again, they said yes. Lots of people have said no, and that's been part of the journey and part of the learning. We knew we needed to reach lots and lots of people, so I went to, well, I call it 1 degree of separation. I told a friend I needed help. They opened the door to Capital Productions. They produced a TV commercial for us. I mentioned it to a guy on the street and he became our ad agency. It's been that sort of simple. It hasn't been that easy, but you know, for me, you know, it's just all about that collaboration. So in 2011, that's when we launched and went to market, and this was our television commercial, which I'll just share with you. Oh, there's no volume. Oh, yeah.
Some kids don't get to play.
Millions of kids won't get to go to school.
Some kids won't have a 5th birthday.
We're asking everyone
To give just $1.
From those who can for those who can't. It's that simple. $1 a day when everyone counts.
Go to $1day.org or call 1-800-1$.
So the reason I showed you that was everything was donated. So this whole thing got off the ground through pro bono support, which is pretty remarkable, I think, to take an idea and for people to actually believe in it when you've got no proof, zero proof that you can actually deliver this thing. Going back to the original vision of wanting $1 a day to have, you know, really minimal environmental impact and yet at the same time raising lots of money. This is our origami cup. So it's something you just print off the website, you fold up, and that can hold $50. So if, you know, we just need lots of people to do something really simple, but collectively we can achieve something amazing. And achieving something amazing, year one, we raised $55,000, and with our partner Save the Children, we built a village health clinic in Laos. Now, we were new to the market. We were just going to be the fundraising concept. So we went out to market and spoke to the 6 sort of top INGOs and said, if we raise some money, what would you do with it to reduce the children's equities in children's health and education? Save the Children came to us with what we thought and felt, you know, was the best proposition. And this village health clinic, Carol Perks, a health worker, has been in Laos for over 20 years working with the Laotian government, so it's fully integrated into their system. They've proven that a clinic such as this can reduce the child's likelihood of dying in the first 5 years by 75%. So those sort of metrics were really compelling to us, and that's what we were looking for, was really demonstrable, measurable long-term impact. So this one clinic was opened on the 29th of May last year through the $1 a day funds. It's serving over 5,000 children, and that will just keep going. So we built it, we trained 5 staff, and fitted it out with equipment. So pretty amazing when it just started with, can we ask everyone for $1? As I said, it's just all been about great collaboration and raising money. And yes, we built the clinic in Laos, and as I said, it was very much inspired by the amazing work of Carol Perks. What's interesting, 87% of Australians, this is a survey recently done, agree that they want to know more about where their donation's going. So the concept of $1 a day and give us $1, we're going to do this, was fundamental to what we set out to achieve, and it's something that we, you know, I need to hold on to as we go through the $1 a day journey, because I think it's really important that we are really transparent with our donors, and that's something that I think the sector needs to sort of develop and grow in. I'll just play this with you, and it just is another part of our journey. I jumped too far ahead. So the vision with $1 a day was we always wanted to fund local and global projects because there's huge inequities in Australia itself. So year 2, we sort of wanted to raise more money, and we set out to deliver a local and a global project. And again, we did it. We asked Australians, can you all give us $1? We raised $63,000. Now, I'm really not impressed with what we've raised because there's 23 million Australians. However, this has all been done part-time, pro bono, so I was still working full-time doing my brand and marketing work, and this was just done at night and weekends. So I think, you know, relative to that, we've come a long way, but we've still got a long, long way to go. So last year, with the funds we raised, we built a water and sanitation program in a school in Ethiopia. So us raising these funds and funding this project, 600 children had one toilet. They can't use it. It's just too disgusting. One of the big issues, girls stop going to school when they start menstruating. So something as simple as providing toilets can change a child's life. They still die from diarrhoea, you know, in Ethiopia, but it can also change their whole trajectory through education. And this is one of those girls. So this is a 12-year-old, Marima is her name, and she goes to the Gira Ambo school, which we've funded. And then locally, these are 3 of the students in Darwin. So Save the Children have this fabulous program called Aboriginal School Attendance. So we've got a great education system in Australia, but for various reasons, some children can't get there. This girl in the middle, Alia, she was attending school 20% of the time until this Save the Children program started working with her. So these amazing Indigenous cultural guidance officers, it's really simple stuff. They wake the children, they get them to the bus stop, they make sure they've got a uniform, they've got lunch. If there's not lunch, they make sure that somehow it can be provided. So really, really simple stuff that she's now achieving 100% attendance at her school because she's got that simple support to get her to school. And same with the two other guys. So $1 a day and Save the Children. We've, you know, achieved a lot, but there's a whole lot more to achieve. And what I learned in those first couple of years was it's a whole lot of work. You know, it's hard work. It needs full-time focus. It needs a lot more expertise. But also the complexity of it all. So, you know, yes, we set up a company, a trust, we got DGR status, you've got to do audits and reporting and so forth, which is really, really important. But to do that in every country where we want to take $1 a day it was going to just become not as efficient as partnering with someone else who's already in those countries. The other, consideration in looking at a collaboration was that, back to my original point, the world doesn't need more charities, but we need to be able to raise more money for them. So it just made sense to consider, working together and more effectively. 57% of Australians, this was a research done by Millward Brown, and a survey of 1,000 Australians. So believe that 57%, agreed that there are too many charities for the same cause, and 60% say they're tired of being asked. Now that 60% was one of my motivations in starting up $1 Day. Nice first world problem, I'm sick of being asked. When 67 million kids aren't getting to school and 7.6 are dying before their birthday from preventable diseases. So whilst, we might be sick of being asked, and whilst we think there's too many charities and it's a cluttered marketplace, it's not enough for us to stop thinking about how can we do it better and how can we improve. And this I found today is actually a quote from the founder of Save the Children, which maybe it's sort of serendipitous, but the world's not ungenerous but unimaginative and very busy. And this is written, she started Save the Children in 1919, and what I think is interesting is nothing's changed, I don't think. We're still really, really busy. We're not ungenerous, but we've got to find different ways of connecting with donors and asking for their dollar and then reporting back to them. So after 2 successful years of, I'll call it, dating with Save the Children and $1 Day, we started to talk about getting married. And because we wanted to create greater efficiency, and also there's a sort of niggling, almost competitiveness between us, because at the end of the day, I realised that I was another charity, not me personally, but $1 Day was another charity. We had the same structures, the same complexities, the same reporting, so on and so forth. But what we'd set out to do was actually fundraise to support existing charities. So it just made sense that we looked at the marketplace, looked at who we could partner with, and because of the alignment of vision and missions, we chose to, dive in together with Save the Children. It also made sense when we looked at the sort of charities and the campaigns. So there's, lots and lots of charities. As we know, there's over 600,000 in Australia, and some of them have some really, really successful major campaigns out there in the marketplace, and Save didn't have one. So again, perfect fit. They're an incredible charity who are delivering programs all around the world in Australia. In Australia, they're doing, they're working in over 100 locations, and yet, they don't have a big above the line campaign. Here we are with a big above the line campaign ready to go, so it just made sense in our heads. The other motivations were Save work locally and globally. So that was, again, went back to our original vision. We want to raise money, give it to a charity that's delivering demonstrable change in children's health and education locally and globally. Save are doing that. So we, boards start talking and you start drafting licence agreements, and it's really cumbersome. But it's really important. So we've been on that journey now for coming up for about 8 months, and we're still on it. So I officially joined Save the Children, left my brand and marketing business, and officially joined them to sort of run the $1 Day campaign, and I joined them 4 months ago. 1 + 1 = 11 is to be really honest with you and say it hasn't been easy, and it's been a little bit challenging at times, and that's 1 + 1 = 11 comes from a fabulous children's book called Delilah Darling, and I recommend you all read it. I find reading children's books can put life in perspective. Anyhow, as I said, we've had some moments of joy, some moments of tears, I'll be honest. There's great people, great passion, but there's been lots and lots of learnings, which I'll talk about. So I think one of the challenges has been this real sense of battle of the brands. So, well, we're Save the Children, well, I'm $1 Day and we're $1 Day. and sort of just having to stop and go, why are we doing this? And going back to the original vision of, reducing the inequities in children's health and education. If we do it together, or if we work together, it will be much more powerful. My other observation was organisational ego and then personal ego. I feel really passionate about $1 a day for, various and probably obvious reasons. And Save the Children feel really passionately about their brand. So just trying to have that personal awareness of why are we having these problems, or why is there some conflict here, and how do we work through that? Staying true to the vision. So I think by having, vision and mission statements is really, really powerful in being able to go back to them and say, okay, I'm being encouraged to do this or to do that with the concept or the brand, but is it still aligned to the vision and the mission, and will it, still deliver on what we set out to? So I found that, pardon me, really, really important in the process. Honesty, openness, and having difficult conversations. It's not always easy. So to have the courage to have those tricky conversations and say, this is working really well, but this isn't. How do we, keep working together to fix that? So, hopefully I'm not being too honest and open, but it is a journey. And, another great children's book, Dr. Seuss, The Places You'll Go. There's up days and down days. So back to having those vision and missions, the other, I got some fabulous advice from Nigel Marsh, and he, said to me, avoid mission creep. So with something like $1 a day, it's really, it'd be really easy to say, why don't we make it $5 a day? Because we'll raise a lot much more money. $1 is just not enough. Let's make it $10 a day. But being able to say, no, that's not inclusive, it's not affordable, and staying true to that mission has been very, very important. The governance has also been really important. So by having really good boards, good board members who are willing to challenge you, willing to, respect the original vision and mission and so forth, but that's been fundamental. And then the other big, thing that's been important is saying, what will be the impact? So, considering what will be the impact on $1 a day by merging Save the Children, what will be the impact for Save the Children, but more importantly, what can be the long-term impact of this, partnership. And that's what's really, keeps us going and drives us forward, because I still fundamentally believe there's a lot more potential in working together and collaboratively. I put this in because this is one of the sort of, those wise words that I often come back to when I'm lying in bed. And so this is by the CEO of American Express, and having come from a brand background, it resonates with me that, the brand is the litmus test for every business decision that we make and for the way we conduct those businesses. Because of this, our brand and corporate values must be consistent, and don't make any business decision without asking what is the likely impact on the brand. So that's something else that I've just constantly been asking through this journey with $1 a day. And it's not just about the partnership with Save the Children, it's also the partnership with all the pro bono partners and everyone that gets involved and contributes to that journey and that brand. So as I said, we've been there 4 months, and it's, it's coming together. They have fabulous programs. They think, we have got a really exciting fundraising concept. We've trademarked $1 a day, £1 day, €1 day, because I have the big vision that imagine if on this one day the whole world did something really simple and really inclusive, and we could raise a lot of money to do a lot of good. So we are well and truly on the journey, and our next campaign comes out in October, and this is just some of the sort of campaign collateral and the marketing collateral, which I just sort of whizzed through. But it just sort of, for me, it demonstrates that you can work together and it can come together cohesively and tell a more relevant and compelling story. Because at the end of the day, this is what it's all about. These are some of the children from the Intensive Supported Play Scheme, which we're funding this year with $1 a day. And then The other funds are going to a massive back-to-school program for the children who've fled Syria. So that's been the sort of journey, and now I thought I'll just share with you, my sort of personal, professional, philosophical learnings, and let me preempt this by saying I'm well and truly still on that journey. But this is what I sort of currently know to be true. You've got to stay really true to your core values, and that's at a professional level, but also at a personal level. And constantly rechecking both of those for me has been important. Knock on the doors of those who can help you. So, Baker & McKenzie, PayPal, big brands. I'm not, but I believed in something, and somehow I managed to tell a story, and I managed to engage them to come on that journey with me. Ask for help, that's the other big one, which I still need to remind myself, I don't know everything, so go and ask the experts, how you'd solve this. And that's what I'm actually interested about all you guys is, tell me what I don't see, what I don't know, how we can improve this, how can we take it further and reach farther. Listen, so certainly some of the criticism or knockbacks I've had along the way have actually been the best advice I've had. And it, took me a while to realise that. As I said, the acceptance and the rejection are both a win-win because you'll learn something through that process. Have the courage and the clarity to hold the difficult decisions. So, we've had to walk away from pro bono partners because they weren't understanding the real value proposition or the real concept behind it. And that's really hard when you've got someone who's giving you something for free. It's sort of easy to just go take it. But again, it comes back to those values and that vision and mission. It won't be easy, so I guess that surprised me. You start with all that passion and all that vision and all that excitement, and then it's a challenge, and you have your good days and your bad days, but anyhow, that was just something that really surprised me. The other big one, is about being grateful. So some people can give us $1 and that really excites me, and, I still get so excited. And then there's other partners who give you a whole TV campaign, and you just, it's still amazing. The other one is persistence. It's easy, and I still have times where I think, why am I doing this? Just go back to your day job, Soph. But I still believe that, there's a real opportunity there to change fundraising, simplify it, be more transparent, be more inclusive, and also to change these children's lives. I don't want to be sitting in my rocking chair at the age of 80 and the world not to be a better place. And then don't give up being persistent. Yes. The other one is rest. That's something I'm not good at, but I'm slowly learning that it's really good to step away and just change your perspective. But that one I'm still haven't mastered. And these then enter into my personal, but slightly connected to this, that I think it's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. So when this opportunity came, sort of, I guess it was a strategy that I presented to the board in terms of we should collaborate. But then when SAVE went, yeah, let's do it, there was a whole lot of fear and a whole lot of like, oh, well, there's a lot of risk involved. I had to close down my other business. But I had that sense of I'd rather die knowing. Like, I've got to give this a shot. Life has given me an opportunity here. I've got to go for it and give it the best I possibly can. So, and I feel about that, my personal life, but also in this, professional journey as well. And the other one is go to funerals. So that's just one of my little things I've learnt along the years that, we are really busy, as Eglantine pointed out back in 1919, but there's some things that are really important, and you stop and you go and you have to go and do them. And the other one is, keep seeking out learning environments. And so that's, That's where nights like this are really important, and I think for me, I find it, it becomes more and more challenging as we become busy and so forth, but to constantly be in a learning environment and to be listening and going, okay, how can this be improved, and what can you, share with me from your expertise? And last but not least is that I do believe that 1 + 1 can equal so much more. And that's where the whole sort of vision for $1 a day came from. So when everyone counts, every child, but also everybody. So as I said, it doesn't matter if you're the CEO or a kid, we're all just as important. And then when every dollar donated counts. So we're transparent and reporting back and delivering on what we said we'd promise. So that's my story. It's still a work in progress. As I said, I've only been with SAVE officially for 4 months. But, we're on that road, and, hopefully what I've shared with you, has, given you some sort of seed of an idea or something to help you guys on your journeys, and happy to take questions and brainstorm and talk about it in more depth. The average donation for the last 2 years has been $25. And that's the other lovely thing, because people go, oh, $1. I've got my takeaway coffee and I got those shoes, I can give more. So that's been lovely. But I'd love to get to the point where with $1 a day and I've got sort of various models in my head, and if you've got any ideas, tell me, where if people give $1, 100% of that gets to the project that we're sort of have identified that needs funding. So that's where I want to get, which people tell me is far too ambitious. That persistence point? Yeah. So I started as a volunteer, so the sort of 5 years from this idea and knocking on doors, and that was all just volunteer. I then sort of seed funded it, I guess. So the work I was doing in my brand and marketing business, I then, with a semi-plan, I took on this huge project, and it was, I knew that from that I could then sort of not work for a few months to get the first campaign into market, because I knew I'd need that full-time focus. And then it's all been pro bono. So, but now I'm with Save the Children, so I am actually getting paid, which is a really nice change. But as I said, that we need to raise a lot more money, and we really need to grow this thing and scale it up. So, we're talking to the other SAVE member countries, and that was, again, part of the strategy behind the partnership, so to speak, and I'm calling it a merger. That's essentially what it is, and it's no different between a not-for-profit and a for-profit. You have the same battle of the brands and egos and so forth. Yeah. So at the moment, look, you can give your $1 any time. So the website's there 365, 24/7. But we want to have that focal point. So one of our brand problems has been people assume we want $1 every day because it's only $1. Well, what can you do with $1? But that comes back to the lovely pointy end, which is, but if everyone does it, there's huge potential. And not everyone can give $1 on every day, and other campaigns are out there doing that. So that's our sort of point of difference. It is just $1 on just one day.
You say pay company, or they reduce the fees?
The first 2 years, they refunded all the fees. They're not partnering with us this year. And I think that's interesting. I think, that comes back to sort of when, you're working on it part-time, you can't sort of nurture and manage those sort of accounts, so to speak, as diligently as I think you can. And I'm not saying that was the problem. I think they'll come back, but I think we need to do a bit of work before then. Restricted. Yeah. So, and again, this has been the interesting thing, because I'm new to this whole fundraising, not-for-profit sector, so this whole restricted, unrestricted funding. being true to our vision and mission. We're here to reduce the global inequities in children's health and education. If people give us $1, what will we deliver? So we actually identify the area of need. So this year, as per those images, it's intensive supported play schemes in Australia, and then the back to school education programs in the Lebanon Jordan refugee camps. So we've identified them, and that's where we're channeling all the fundraising for this year. Yeah, so like we have in the previous years, you know, we said, give us $1, we want to build this clinic, and thank God we raised enough to build one. The next year we said, give us $1, it'll all be about education, Ethiopia and Australia, and we did it. So yeah, that's very much part of it, and that's one of the challenges. So, you know, getting that sort of information back in a timely way. So e-newsletters and then on our website. Yeah, and you know, learning about hows frequently is not enough, you know. So it's, you know, I'm still learning that, you know, communication sort of detail.
But to clarify, you can give it any time.
Anytime.
Right?
Yep. Anytime. Yeah. Yeah. So we're not limiting it, but I'd love to. So you know, our campaign will be in market this October. You know, so you'll be able to give in NAB branches and 7-Eleven and Contour Studios and other retail outlets throughout October. But in terms of $1 dates on the 24th, and that's when we sort of celebrate, and there's this big crescendo. I'd love to get to the point where you can't give before, and at midnight, you know. But I don't imagine we'll ever get there. But it'd be great to have the guts to say no to the donor dollar. No, look, it is in National Children's Week, but I'll be honest, it was when it suited one of our major partners. So it was, yeah. So the vision is I'd like it to be, you know, the same day around the world. So finding that day, you know, is quite interesting in terms of when Europe on summer holidays and America and Australia and so forth. But we're sort of crystallising that. And that's the other advantage with being with SAVE. You know, they're in 30 member countries. We've trademarked it in all those. So, you know, hopefully we can bring it to life. Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes. So we say to, you know, Save the Children identify where the greatest area of need is, like Syria is at the moment globally. And in Australia, the intensive supported play schemes is focusing on recently arrived immigrants and refugee children. So they're our greatest area of need. I think I guess at the end of the day, when I set out on this, I said we don't need more charities, but charities need more money. And suddenly, to raise money, you've got to be a charity. So I've had to go through the same process: company, trust, DGR status, fundraising licenses. So it is complex. So we were a charity, and we're going out to market and saying, you know, we want you to give us your $1, but SAVE are out there saying, but we want you to give us your $1 too. And there's 600,000 charities all out there saying, give us your $1. So it made more sense to say, give us your $1 on $1 day for Save the Children. So, you know, we've changed the language significantly. It's Save the Children's $1 day. And, you know, on $1 day, Save the Children will da-da-da. So it was just, you know, identifying that fact that I didn't want to create a charity, and yet I have. So, yeah, how do we declutter, make it more simple, and, you know, the ambition, make it more effective? I don't think so, because of course we had MOUs and, you know, their logo, and, you know, we've been very diligent, I think, in recognising that, and you know, credits on captions for photos and all those assets. So, you know, I hope that at no point have we ever sort of said, you know, we built that clinic. It's, you know, through the funds from $1 a day, Save the Children who built that clinic. So I think it was more just that, I don't know, nervousness of, yeah. A lot of it all comes back to we're human beings at the end of the day, and that's why I sort of recently went, yeah, there's this professional ego and then there's personal ego that comes to play every day. Oh, absolutely. 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 So, yeah, so people still say, you know, where is it going? How much of that money is going to reach the field? It's also been interesting for me, you know, when we did we were funding an Aboriginal project last year, I had people say I wouldn't give a cent to Aboriginals. And so it's been a real eye-opener to the prejudices and the attitudes and the misinformation out there in the marketplace. And that's another thing I think, you know, that the not-for-profit sector could really collaborate on and do a lot towards that, in terms of changing the misinformation out there. And about the needs, but also about what happens to the donor dollar. I found there's sort of, I'm going to say there's two types of people. People either really want to know what you're doing with it, or they don't care. And I've had people give me a lot of money, and they haven't asked where it's going. And then other people just want every little detail, you know, where, when, how many children, and even if it's $1. Yeah, and you've got to respect that. But I think it's also interesting, I think it's slightly reflective on how fatigued they are and, dare I say, the lack of trust in the sector. It's like, yeah, but I gave $100 to that cause and I never heard from them again. And that, you know, that's what I'd like to change with $1 a day. I like regular communications that are bite-sized chunks. So, you know, come back to me once a month, but I want to be able to read it and delete it in, you know, a matter of seconds, probably. But yeah, if I want more information, I can go and find it. But yeah, just tell me the essential bits, the exciting bits, the interesting bits. And if I want the detail, I can go and find it. So that's my personal perspective. Yeah, very good question. We are still working that out and negotiating that. So, and negotiating is probably the wrong word. We need to be mindful of this brand and this donor journey. So we've gone out there and said, once a year we're going to ask you for $1. So we have to be very careful about, you know, do we then knock on your door 30 days later and go become a regular donor? Do we then say, you know, we've had an emergency, can you now give us $100? So that's something we need to work out. And that's that journey where we're going to have to be careful. And some don't, and for me it comes back to about building trust. If they give us $1 and they trust us because we didn't deliver what we said we would, then chances are they'll be happy to give us $1 again or $100. So that's my perspective. But we do have to be really careful. What we have found is people love the idea, and there's a real aha moment when you talk about it. They go, yeah, it should be that simple, and it could be that powerful. Year one, on $1 a day, we had an event in Martin Place, and I was there, and I got an email from a school teacher in the Kimberley, and she said, I saw your TV commercial in Perth when I was on holidays, and 70% of her students were Indigenous, and she said, we can't usually participate in these things. But I came back to the school and I told the kids about it, and we held our own $1 a day, and they sent me photographs and they'd made their own posters, and they raised $63. And she said, I had kids coming in with $5 notes, and I offered to give them change, and they said, no, I've realised there's kids worse off than me. And what I loved about that was that these kids were usually the recipient, and this time they could actually participate, and they, you know, it's that everyone counts. They, you know, and anyhow, they're the bits of magic where, when it's hard, I go, no, come on. Maybe there's something in this. You know, I think $1 a day will very much be a digital execution eventually, and especially when you look at how we're all transacting our money and banking, and you rarely have money in your wallet. And that's the sort of journey we're on, and that's where we definitely need to keep partnering with those experts. Wanting to get involved, but, well, unable to do it at this stage. And for all the reasons why they can't, I can tell them why they can, but very complex systems, processes, engineering, and I think that's where PayPal was so delightful. You know, I love working with people who then go, well, we can solve this. So Yeah, we'll get there. And this is the other opportunity, I think, in the collaboration. So the technology, the partnerships and so forth may not exist here in Australia, but in other SAVE countries, they might be there. So we might actually be better off, growing and getting that crescendo and scale in another country. And that's what happened with Movember. It was actually once they reached into Canada that it really took off. So the first year we did have an app. One of the problems we had was we weren't in market early enough, and then we couldn't market it. So we still do have that app, and I'd love to re-engineer it because I think it was brilliant. And the app was, you had to get your dollar from Australia to Laos. So to have the time and the expertise to, review that, think how can we do it better would be great. And that was a free app that then you could donate through, because again, going through the whole Apple process of, is it a paid app and, what commission. So, yeah, would love to, adopt those sorts of technologies. I think that's the exciting space, is the technology space, which is so not my expertise. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sophie.